So the rest of this week we will be using the packet that you picked up after the test. Okay? Because it's a lot of figuring out graphs and word problems and all that stuff. So we figured we'd give you the info, make it easier on you. So what we're going to do today, we actually started this last week. We're going to work backwards now. Okay? So we're going to give you a curve. Okay? Should erase this part because it doesn't just end like that. Okay? So we're going to give you the curve, and we're going to ask you to come up with the equation.
Are we going to have to come up with multiple equations?
You're only going to have to come up with one. I will be coming up with multiple ones. Yes. Yep. And we'll talk about that.
And that will hold true like all the time as well? Like for the test day, I don't need to come for 3.
Okay. So, based off of this, so I'm going to give you a curve. What do you think you are going to need to know before you give us the equation? What's one thing? You're going to need to know the amplitude.
Yes.
Okay? What if you're not given the amplitude? So we'd also need to know the middle too, right? Okay. Why is the middle important?
Justifies the amplitude.
With what?
On scale. Like the high and the low.
So we also would need the high and the low, right? Okay. So we're going to need some combination of those four, because those are all kind of tied together, right? Okay. So we're going to need to find the amplitude. Okay. We're going to need to find the amplitude because that's our what in our function? That's our a value in our function. Okay? So we definitely need to find the amplitude. And sometimes it might be given to us. Sometimes we might have to find it. How do we find it if it's not given to us?
If you have the middle, high, and low, you can find it.
By doing?
By subtracting high from the middle and seeing what's in between.
Okay, so it's distance from middle to high or it's distance middle to low. Okay? Yep. All right. Why is the middle also important? No, even think about the function. Dylan?
It will eventually end up being the d variable.
It's the d variable. Yep, the d value in our equation. Yep. Okay. So those two of those four are important. Okay. And we'll be able to pull those right off of our graph. Okay. What else is important? Yes, ma'am. The start. Okay. So the start is going to be important. Okay. So now if my start is, or if I'm a sine curve, where am I going to be starting? In the middle, right? If I'm a sine curve, I start in the middle. But if I'm a cosine curve, I start at the high, right? Or the low. Depending upon if what? If A is negative. Okay? So if A is positive, I'm starting up high. If I'm usually going to use a negative A, I'm going to start down low. Okay? So we got to know those. Okay? Is there anything else that we need to know? Because what's that start value going to be? In my function. C value, right? Okay. So that start value is going to be my C value. Okay. What else do I need to know? You got to find the period. Now, how am I going to be able to find the period based off of my graph?
I have a question.
I have an answer.
So these are things we are trying to find to get the equation, or these
Correct.
Okay. So we don't need these to start finding the equation, right?
You will be able to find all of these
Given
based off of the graph.
Got it.
Yep. Okay. Why do I need, or how do I go about finding the period? Not necessarily. Well, okay, but wait on that. Okay.
You could use the start and beginning values like the actual graph.
Okay, and if the period is the space between them, right? So it's the end minus the start. Okay? Now, end minus start, right? I know the start, because we found it in number 2, but how do I know where the end is? Well, I don't know the period.
Can you just take it wherever the start is, like where it hits the middle again, or hits the end?
Close. How do I know where it ends? So like, let's say I started here. I gotta get back to the same point, right? Okay? But is this the same point?
Oh, the same, like directional.
The same, so that, because now I'm going up again. So it's not that one. So this would be my ending point over there. Okay? And I'd find that horizontal distance. Or if I started up here, then I would end up there. If I started down here, I would end over here. Okay? When I get back to the same position, not the same value, the same position on the next wave. Okay? Now, Eden, you were saying something else about period.
2 pi over the absolute, or divided by the absolute value of b.
Period is equal to 2 pi divided by the absolute value of b. That's going to come into play because we need b in our equation. We don't need the period. We need b in our equation. Because our equations, remember, are y equals a times the sine of b times x minus c plus d. Or a cosine of b times x minus c plus d. Yes, ma'am.
I don't know how far we're going, but would you accept like y equals a sine and then just one set of parentheses like
bx minus c?
Minus c.
I'd accept it. It's
Okay.
probably just more figuring for me, but yeah.
Right, but you would want us, I guess, to write it
Just like
totally
this, yeah.
factored out.
Mhm.
Okay.
Okay? So, on the, really it's the second one, but really it's the first one. Okay? So on this one now, I would like us to find a sine curve based off of this picture. Okay? So I want us to find a sine curve for this graph. Okay? So, what do you want to start with? Okay, so if I'm going to start with my amplitude, I need to find what my high value is, what my low value is, what my middle is, so I can find the amplitude. Okay, so what is one of them? I'll throw it out there for you. The high is not -1. I like the high value here being -4. I know. Yeah. It's all right. In the last class, I made an 11 and it ended up looking like a 4. And then they got all kinds of confused. Okay. What else do we know? Low of -16. Which makes my middle be -10. Add them together. -4 plus -16 is -20, which puts my middle as -10. Picture's not necessarily the straightest, but there we go. Okay, so there's my middle. Add these two together. -4 plus -16 gets me -20 divided by 2. The average of the high and the low. Okay, which makes then what as my amplitude?
6.
So my amplitude is 6. So I've got my A value. I've got my D value. Right? Okay. Now we just got to figure out B and C. Okay. Let's go with figuring out our period first. Okay. So my period is the amount of distance it takes me to get back to the same position anywhere on the curve. So those are 3 examples there of where I could find the period. Okay? What is the period of this curve? I would agree that this horizontal distance here is 12 in all 3 cases. So that makes my period be 12. Okay. But is that my B value? End minus start. Yeah. Is that my B value? No. So now I've got to find my B value. So my period, once again, was 2 pi divided by the absolute value of B. So 12 is going to equal 2 pi divided by B, right? So what's B? I get a b value of pi over 6. Agree? Okay. So now it's just a matter of where you want to start. Okay? So if I start here, okay, so I'm going to start at the black dot. My equation would be y equals 6 sine of, my b value was pi over 6 times x minus -1 minus 10. Because that's my start. My start is at -1.
So you do the opposite of that to get positive, right?
Well, subtract that.
Subtract, yeah.
Okay? But what if I don't want to start there? What if I want to start here? Then my equation is going to be 6 times the sine of pi over 6 times x minus 11 minus 10. But what if I don't want to start there? What if I want to start right there? Now what has to happen? Minus, that's 5. This would become negative. My amplitude would become negative.
Which point on the graph was that orange?
Orange.
Orange.
They're color coded. Or I could make that one. It's a good news, bad news kind of a thing. The good news is you've got options. All 4 of those are the exact same curve that is graphed right there. You've got options. So it's good for you. Who's it bad for? Me. It's bad for me. Because I got to come up with 4 of them. And that's just if we started there. If I would, we could have gone over another one too. So
If you're, for the parentheses thing, I guess I'm so confused as to how, like, some of them are positive and some of them are negative. Do you always start with x minus?
it's x minus your start value. So if your start value is negative, then it's positive. Or then it's x plus. Because it's always minus c. It's always minus c. Okay? You now turn the page, go to number 3, find me a cosine curve for the following graph. I don't know why it's graphs. It should just be graph. Oops. That's it. Oh, it's way up. Come on now. There we So I got an amplitude of 5. I got a middle at 2. Right? Okay? So I get a period then of 2 to 8, so that's 8. Agree? With a period length being 8. If my period length is 8, then 8 is going to equal 2 pi divided by b. So that means b is going to equal 2 pi divided by 8. So b here is pi over 4. Agree with that? Okay. So now it's just a matter of where you want to start. So if I start here, that's going to be y equals 5 cosine of pi over 4 times x minus negative 2 plus 2. If I start here, that's going to be 5 cosine of pi over 4 times x minus 6 plus 2. If I start here, that's going to be 5 cosine pi over 4 times x minus 14 plus 2. If I went to the next one, if I went to this one right here, it would be 5 cosine pi over 4 times x minus 22, then plus 2. Nina.
So the start is positive 2, right?
The start,
Yeah, like where you started, like the red.
that red start is positive 6. Positive 6.
No, like where you
Oh, where I found the period?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so the start is positive 2, right?
Yep.
And then when you put it in the equation, it's x minus.
I haven't gotten that one yet. Hold on, tap raise. Because that one's going to be a negative a value. Right? So if I start here, that one's going to be negative 5 cosine of pi over 4 times x minus 2 plus 2. Because I'm starting at the bottom, my a has to be negative. If I go over to this one, I haven't done a purple one yet. Oops, come on, purple. I haven't gone to that one. If I go to purple, then it would be negative 5 cosine of pi over 4 times x minus 10 plus 2. Okay?
So you could start with that, the 22 one, wherever that was. You could start there. Or I guess you don't need the end shown on your graph because that doesn't come over.
Because you have all the other stuff. Yep.
Okay.
Yep. You have the period. You know the amplitude. You know. Yep. Okay. Have yourselves a great, grand, and wonderful Wednesday.